So today we need to talk about OU and Texas informing the Big 12 that they are leaving the conference. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I'm in Indianapolis at day 2 of Big Ten Media Days. But again, I'm doing this because you have asked me to speak on the reports coming from both 247 and The Athletic that OU and Texas will inform the Big 12 that they plan to leave. The question right now seems to be not if, but when. And when we say not if, but when, that's exactly it, right? So the grant of rights goes through 2024 with the conference. And the thinking is OU and Texas would owe the conference about $80 million if they wanted to leave that rights early, right? So you would have to pay that money back in. Now, there are lawyers that are going to go through these contracts and figure out what can and cannot be enforced, and these things can be settled in court. But what this reminds me of is the blow-up of the Southwest Conference and the formation of the Big 12. You'll remember 8 of the Big 8 schools combined with 4 of the Southwest Conference schools to form the Big 12 in the mid-90s, and of course Oklahoma and Texas were founding members of that. What I find to be really interesting about all of this is that nobody has said that OU and Texas leaving the Big 12 means they're joining the SEC. Because as Greg Sankey had said out loud, right, he's there to talk about 2021 football, and no invitation had been extended to either Oklahoma or Texas to join the SEC. Even as we speak, though, it seems that Texas A&M has been very loud about wanting to be the only Texas team in the SEC, even as it feels like they might have enough votes to vote in OU and Texas. There's still a lot to be worked out there, but I do think it is worth talking about that Oklahoma and Texas want to leave the Big 12. Now, that could mean a number of different things, right? Like there's even been floating out there like the possibility of the Pac-12 growing larger or even the Big 12 going to 20 teams. All these things are on the table. It's one of the reasons I think that this is a very interesting time to talk about the sport because, as we all know, the reason that we love conference realignment is we like to think of what could be. But also, you could throw almost anything against the wall, see if it sticks, because nobody knows exactly what it is that we're doing here. We only know what they are willing to say out loud. And right now, the only people talking about OU and Texas staying are the folks that have their heads in the sand, because it feels from the athletic directors who've spoken to The Athletic and to 247, and even in text messages, that this is done for them, that they have had it, that they want out of this conference. But I still think that you should be thinking, like I'm thinking, does that necessarily mean you're joining the SEC? Because as I said, I don't think it's really that cut and dry, and I don't think it's really in their interest to join the SEC, because I don't think that there's a real road to the college football playoff for Oklahoma or Texas in the SEC. I find this to be all really, really interesting, but I do want to continue to stress what the facts are in the matter, right? And let's go from there. And if you don't have the facts, then do a little bit more reading or listen to me when I talk. But I'm not going to jump ahead on this story because there's no reason to. This is already moving at warp speed. We also know that the pandemic had a lot to do with how big companies have had to realize, hey, we got to find a different way to do business if we're going to recover from this devastating 2020 year. And I think conference realignment is one way to go. But what does conference realignment provide each one of those schools, right? Just because you get bigger does not mean you get better. Just because you're adding more teams does not mean the conference is sustainable. Right now, the American has to be looking at this going, I wonder what this is about, as should the Big Ten, as should the Pac-12, as should the Mountain West for that matter. What I'm telling you is be very careful about jumping the gun on anything. Continue to wait and see, because people can't wait to tell you what they think is going to happen. But until you see it happen, chill out. It's okay. We're all going to be here. Oklahoma and Texas are still going to be a very large part of the college football landscape, and I would not be too loud about what your culture is going to look like, because you honestly don't know. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.